it will be National SANDF Day. That is commemorated, I think, next or on. It is commemorated soon in the next few weeks. But government approving 372 million rand for the SANDF's Defence Force Day. It's on the 21st of February. Will be held in Thohoyandou. And this is happening while the SANDF is widely described as being cash-strapped or hollowed out. Critics, including CASATU, argue that 372 million rand could instead go to aircraft maintenance, keeping ships at sea, vehicle repairs, training and spare parts. There'll be 7,000 troops deployed, hundreds of VIPs. There's transport, accommodation, overtime, logistics, catering, security, staging, communications. All goes into the 372 million rand tab to host National Defence Force Day. Helmoed Heitman is a military defence analyst. Good morning, Helmoed. Really appreciate your time. Let's start with that number first. In a defence force short of more than 40 billion rand, we've had budgets to the Department of Military Veterans staggering over the last 10 years. How would the SANDF defend spending 372 million rand on a single day?
Okay, well, my first point is I don't know how they arrived at that figure, because previous armed forces days were a hell of a lot less. They were in the region of 30 million or so. Still a lot of money, by your standards or mine, but not by government standards. So I don't know what they've done. They may have just taken every single possible cost involved. For instance, salaries. Now, you shouldn't be including the salaries in this because you're paying them anyway. You shouldn't be adding in the food for people who normally live in barracks because you're feeding them in barracks anyway. That's one side. So I'm not sure what all they've added in here. I think it may be a bit of an overblown figure. But that said, look, you can do other things with that money. But what a thing like Armed Forces does, Armed Forces Day, well, for the Defence Force, one thing, it's a recruiting aid. Young people can go and see the kids, speak to soldiers, etc., maybe get interested, maybe you get some youngsters joining. But there's another aspect to it. Army units have to practice moving over considerable distances and then setting up camp somewhere. That's part of the deal. So do Air Force units, if they're forward deployed to an airfield somewhere else other than normal base. Now just consider you take a family picnic or family camping trip, mommy, daddy, two kids, two Labradors, and you pack them in a car and you're off. It's a hell of a performance, actually. But now you're doing it with a couple of hundred people or a couple of thousand people. It has to be practiced. Not the rules in the book, but if you don't practice it, you're going to have a disaster. I know I've been involved in a couple of those way back when. So a thing like this, sure, they're moving up there for Armed Forces Day, but it practices movement planning, convoy organization, convoy management a lot. The air side of it, pilots have to fly. Whether they just drill a hole in the sky somewhere or they fly to do a display over Polokwane or over Thohoyandou or wherever it is, same difference. They've got to fly, so they might as well do something that makes people happy. And so it goes on. So it's not entirely sort of money poured down the drain. It's actually part of a training program, which maybe the Defence Force should explain better.
And there's a history of, I think, a lack of public confidence and trust in the SANDF. I'm no military jingoist. I have family and friends who are part of the armed services who have been deployed. Some work within the administration. I appreciate the important role that they do to support the security of this country, and I support them in wanting to serve this country. But generally, I think South Africans have I think healthy skepticism based on our history. There's a historical context, the history of apartheid era military, but then also more recently the operational and readiness challenges, the trust issues, political misuse, problematic foreign deployments. Is a SANDF Day helpful in countering some of those narratives?
Look, it can be if they are intelligent and send some of their best soldiers and best junior leaders out there, so people meet soldiers who actually, fit and obviously competent and speak with confidence. That gives a different picture. I feel as sorry for, maybe more than you do, sorry for the people in the Defence Force. A lot of them work minor miracles on a daily basis to keep the machine running, despite the underfunding, despite the government using it for all sorts of things it isn't trained or equipped for. And to be fair there, the troops have done well in every deployment. including now the misfunction there at Goma. And to be fair there too, I know that at least some of the senior generals, including I believe the Chief of the Army, actually said we cannot do that job. We no longer have the capability to do it. And government's answer was, well, get to shut up and get on with it anyway. So they did their best, but the best wasn't good enough, not surprisingly. But you're right, there is this doubt about the Defence Force. And the biggest problem there is the Defence Force has very little grasp of how to run public relations and media liaison. They're in a death grip by counterintelligence that everything is secret because some enemy is looking for the information, which is nonsense. We're at peace. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff they could release and go public on that they don't, and then they would have a hell of a lot more support.
Yeah, I also don't buy the often nostalgic references. Oh, back in the old days, things were much better. Those were the old days. We are in a democratic constitutional republic with the SANDF there to support the Constitution. But when it comes to, let's just say there's a 372 million rand price tag, which the SANDF has gone to the Department of Defence and Military Veterans, gone to Cabinet and says this is our price tag. How wary would the politicians be in saying no, noting the growing commentary by generals in the SANDF raising political questions? I think we should be quite worried about that. When we look at the recent training exercises involving Iran, where it seemingly appears as if SA Navy officials ignoring a call from its civilian political heads to ask Iran to withdraw. Would the South African government, the civilian politicians, be a bit wary of not wanting to adhere to a request by the SANDF? How precarious is this moment, the relationship between the SANDF, the generals, and the civilian politicians?
Okay, the whole SANDF, not the generals, are getting pretty tired of politicians who send them on missions when they know they're not fully equipped for those missions. They're more than tired. By the way, just a quick one on the presence of the Iranian ship. The Navy had very little to do with it. It was handled by joint operations. All the Navy was told to do is provide the facilities and the ships. And my own view, and this is a purely personal view from the little bit I know, is that government is now very hasty scramble to cover their own backsides politically. Because nothing in that exercise, nor General Mafania's visit to Iran, was out of line with our foreign policy. Our foreign policy is pro-Iran, pro-Russia, anti-America, anti-the West, etc., which is stupid because we depend on the West for our investments. But back to your question. The government, I don't think, cares. As long as they have a defense force they can trot out on their occasional parade, most of them don't give a damn. That's why we wind up in trouble. And then the soldiers are expected to do their damnedest and risk their lives. And afterwards, maybe somebody remembers, maybe not. I'm sorry, and this is not unique to South Africa. Politicians in peacetime countries do not give a damn about their military. They have a panic attack when the conflict arises. Then they suddenly fund it, and then they attempt in months or maybe a year or so to undo the damage of decades, which doesn't work. And the price is always paid in casualties. Look at the NATO countries now, the European NATO countries after Ukraine. Yeah. They went into a total flat spin and flap because for 20 years, 30 years, they've been underfunding their forces. Now it's a case of, oops. It's normal. And you can understand it. I'm sure you're like me. You don't enjoy paying your insurance premiums when you pay them. Yeah. But if you don't pay them, it gets a bit tricky.
Helmoed,
then things go wrong.
Helmoed, really appreciate your time and your insights, the independent military and defense analyst.